I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9, and today we get a little bit reactive with the Powah mod, also diving into Flux networks. Hopefully you guys are ready. Now back in All the Mods 9 today, I think today is the day for some real power. That way we can get hostile neural networks running and we can get more of them up and going. Also, it's going to make getting more power easier, believe it or not. So how are we going to come about more power? How about Powah reactors to be exact. And I was looking at solutions other than Powah reactors, but I have to say it's hard to not look at them. 250,000 RF per tick on a max nitro reactor just seems amazing, right? So it's really hard to pass that up. Even if you have other options like solar panels, for example, the Powah solar panels, or if we just look at the Powah in general, the Powah solar panels can produce 150,000 FE per tick, but we would have to have somewhere that is eternal day. And as far as I know, there's really no dimension that is eternal day in this pack. Everything is either like dusk, such as the twilight, like at night, or it follows the overworld's current path or time of day. So yes, there are a bunch of dimensions in this pack, but as far as I know, there's none that has eternal day, unless you let me know down in the comments below, because if we can find one that is eternal day, solar panels ultimately would probably be one of the best options. Now, I do have plans for uber power at some point, but to get to that point, it does require, like I had mentioned earlier, quite a bit of power. So I have set up a location over here, sort of right underneath, and this is perfectly in the center of this area, by the way. I have this now set up, a little bit of a room. It's nothing special yet, but once I start to decorate this, this will work. But I'm going to need to get some things crafted while I'm decorating this room, and that is going to be nitro reactors from Powah. Now, early on, using reactors is not going to be that amazing. Notice this is 200 FE per tick for the starter, then it goes up to 1,000, and then it goes up to 2,500, and then 10,000. That's when it starts to become a little more worth it. But keep in mind, it requires 36 blocks, 36 of these blocks, which means 9 crafts exactly of what you see right here. And that gets progressively harder to do because it requires tons and tons of the dielectric paste, and it also requires tons of the material. But now that we have all of the resources ready to be auto-crafted, including nitro, by the way, and which we do actually have essence for, we should easily be able to craft this. And dielectric paste is going to be honestly nothing. Now at this point, when it comes to our crafters, I have all of these upgraded with speed upgrades, but these netherite crafters craft at an insane rate, especially when they have the speed upgrades in here. And these are very easy to make. And this is going to make the whole process of crafting the materials very fast. Now, something else for this setup you're going to definitely want, it is 100% worth it, and that is the uranite essence from Mystical Agriculture. These seeds are very easy to get. You'll find uranite underground, but this is going to be the fastest way that we can actually get uranite. And well, whenever we start producing our power from our reactors, this is the fuel that's going to get consumed, but it's also what's required to craft these up. So all of these do require, and you're going to need a lot of these starters. So all of these do require uranite in order to craft. Now my plan, as you see right here, is to have 8 of these set up, at least down in the bottom here. So 8 of them should be very easy to maintain. And all they're going to require to keep them fully up and running is some sort of ice. And we could potentially make dry ice, which would be the best coolant for them. But you can use packed ice. That's also very, very good. Some redstone, and then they also need coal, all of which we have essence for. So essentially what I'm saying is don't be scared to make these things. They're not bad. Honestly, the hard part about this is it does cost 85 to craft the 8 nitro that I'm going to be making. 85 nether stars. That is quite a bit. Now, when it comes to building out the inside of this, I think it's going to be really cool to use some gray concrete and then use the mason's table right here, mason's workbench. And I want to use these hazards if I can in some way. This will be pretty cool. There's also these warning bits right here. Ooh, and these stripes. Oh, that's going to be pretty cool. So far, so good. I'm placing down these hazards. I did notice, unfortunately, the hazards, they don't really mesh together from the top. Now, they do have a texture, but it doesn't matter what direction you place them in. They're always going to be facing one way. They do work well on the walls, but what I found better is that the stripes work much, much better as sort of a hazard. Whereas this can go up here, and then I have this lined out. And I think I'm going to also continue using gray on the walls, as these machines are going to be sort of gray, but there's also going to be some red included. And I gotta admit, the concrete blocks, whenever they're modified with the chipped mod, oh, they're so good looking. This right here is a grilled gray concrete. Like, the grilled is really nice with the connected textures. All of these blocks in here, except for the regular gray concrete, is from the chipped mod. Like, this is so cool. I'm actually thinking about changing the floor up and even making the floor a different texture, because there is another texture that we can actually use for these floors. Yeah, this is really nice. This is the pegged gray concrete, which has these little dots all around, and the connected textures are so beautiful. So now that my 288 nitro reactors are ready to go, we can go ahead and start placing them in. And this is where it gets kind of cool, because whenever I click this, it's going to build itself. This is such a fascinating mechanic from the Powah mod, and makes this so easy to set up, because we don't have to worry about setting up multi-blocks. It just works. It just does it. And thankfully they all look the same on all sides. So we can put them in corners, and we don't have to worry about, will this look good in a corner or not? Because it will. Now, with all of them set up, oh, is this glorious. 8 of them all producing, whenever they're at max, 250,000 RF per tick. This will be producing a clean 2 million RF. That's a lot. Now, to get our items over here and all automated, yes, we are going to be using a network receiver in the same way that we set up our other network receiver. You just simply select it with your network card, and then we just need to add it to our network receiver list over here, which in this case, I have one that's right here. So let's go ahead and copy that. I'm just going to place one here, put our card in, and then we now have access to our refined storage, so we don't have to extend all of our cables wonkily all the way over here. Now it's time to lay out the cables, and thankfully these machines, while they do have a kind of confusing looking interface when you first see this, it actually doesn't really require a whole lot. Like I said, it just needs water, which, believe it or not, we should be able to just instantly fill it, and it doesn't need to receive a constant source of water either. You just need to have clicked a bucket onto it at least once, and now they will have a permanent supply of water inside of them. That's a pretty cool feature. Now, one of these slots is going to receive coal, one's going to receive redstone, and one's going to receive a cold source block, some sort of block that cools it. And then the middle is going to receive the uranite. So we should be able to do this all with one importer per reactor. And this is how powerful this can be. So a single reactor, just like this, will, inside of the importer, will have the few items we need. So a redstone block is usually a good idea. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to add this to the list to make it easy to drag them over. So, and then uranite, if I can spell it right, uranite, let's see, is it right here? Yes. So just regular uranite. And I'm going to go ahead and add that. Now we're also going to need crafter upgrades for all of these. Coal. Now in this case, also recommended to use a block of coal to go into the importer. And then we're missing one more thing. And this is where we need to figure out, are we going to use dry ice, which dry ice I think would be the best option for this. Dry ice is going to take power and take 2 blue ice and turn that blue ice into dry ice. Now this isn't going to consume a whole lot of this, so it might be, we might have the ability to do this. But at first we might want to go ahead and, just to get them set up so we have the power to start doing this, let's just first set it to blue ice. Then we need to make some crafting recipes, but if we take a look at this, we should be able to just put all of these ingredients inside of this setup here. Make sure it has a crafting card upgraded. Oh wait, these need to be exporters, not importers. So yes, if we take a exporter, because we're going to be sending out of the network, right? So we should be able to use a crafting card on this, and all of these individual items will automatically get crafted up and sent immediately to the reactor from this bottom port once we get it hooked up. So I think at this point, we now should have everything. And as soon as I place down my single cable right here, all of my reactors should kick on and they should start producing power. Now, I really like the auto mode on all of these. That way the reactor will actually shut itself off if it is full on power, and we don't have to worry about micromanaging anything with some wonky redstone for every single reactor set up. So in this particular case, just turn them all on and then we're ready to go. Boop. And now we should start noticing things starting to fill up. So slowly but surely things are going to start filling up because I didn't put speed upgrades in. But as you see right here, we have the redstone block that is now filled to max, carbon now filled to max, blue ice starting to fill up, and uranite starting to fill up. And what we should notice is our generation rate is going to go up really, really fast. And we'll start producing power the more uranite is built up in this. And we should be able to get up to 250 FE per tick. I think, though, what might limit us, I don't know if this is exactly the case, but it might be our blue ice, as this does have a coolant factor that's associated with it. So we are at 225, it looks like, but if we were to use dry ice, I believe it will go even lower. Now, this next part using modular routers might be a bit complicated, and I'm going to try my best to explain it the best I can. So what we're going to end up using is some distribution modules, but we are going to pretty much automate the production of dry ice inside the energizing orb using modular routers. Well, that and the combination of refined storage. So let's go ahead and get things started with this. It's just going to take 2 modular routers to automate this and access to refined storage. So I'm going to use an exporter and a crafting card to essentially send blue ice into here, because it's going to take 2 blue ice inside the energizing orb in order to craft up that and 10,000 RF per tick, or 10,000 RF to craft up one single dry ice. So now that we have that going, we're also gonna need a crafting card. So I'm just gonna put a crafting card in here. That is going to be how we actually craft up the blue ice in the first place. And there we go. So as you see, auto crafting coming in really, really nice. So this is going to build up in here. But what we need to do is now take this modular router and we need to send an ingredient into the top of this energizing orb. So I am going to set the send location to the top specifically, and that should be good, right? So now that we have that set, let's go ahead and inside here, we need to specify exactly what we're doing. And that is where the regulator augment is going to come into play. So with this, we can say, make sure we whitelist and only send blue ice. And we're going to regulate and say only ever have 2 in the inventory that we're about to send to. And so what should take place is whenever I put this card in here, it is going to send 2 of these only into here at a time. And we will not overfill this. And we have now produced dry ice. But now we need to get this into here, this modular router. That way we can distribute all of this with a round robin that we are starting to produce. And to do this with our MK2, we can go ahead and select the bottom. Now with this, it's really hard to do this while flying. So you have to shrink down, and there we go. And I'm going to select the bottom of this. And then another thing we want to make sure to do is only make sure to set the whitelist, only pull out dry ice. That way we don't accidentally pull out something else. So that's something to definitely note. So let's go ahead and unshrink. Well, kind of unshrink. There we go. And all we have to do is put that in here. And then we should see now we have it automated. It's going to go in, be produced. It's going to be pulled out, hopefully. If all is working correctly, you see it got pulled out. We don't have speed upgrades or anything in here yet. But then we need to send out with our distributor here. We need to transfer out of the router. And what we can do is we should be able to simply click on these ports right here. And I don't know if we can actually select, for example, like this port or what have you. But I am going to select there and here. And I'm going to try my best to make sure that this one at the bottom sends all of this dry ice in round robin mode. So that means one at a time. It's going to make sure to go to all of them. And that should be it. So before this is going to fully work, we're going to have to empty what's currently in there, which is this solid coolant. And that should be it. Oh yeah, and I'm going to have to go underneath on all of my exporters and remove the blue ice that I had set. Now doing it this way, this is honestly pretty cool because we can now simply place this here and you really don't see what is activating anything. All you see is just some lasers firing every now and then, and that's basically it. And that's exactly what I wanted from this. So that way up here, we can look down and we can see all of our power essentially automated, producing roughly 2 million RF per tick for us now. Now I can't forget to sell this whole sci-fi aesthetic by placing down some of these beautiful lights from Simply Lights. These make the areas really pop. So I'm going to go ahead and add some edge lighting to really sell the whole thing. So now we have a ton of power, but we're not utilizing it just yet because we're not transferring it anywhere. Now, when we're using power at this scale, I think it's now time to tap into the power of Flux networks. Now to get into Flux networks, we're going to need to simply take some redstone, some obsidian, and turn it into flux dust. And we're going to need a lot of it. So I'm going to grab as much redstone as I can for right now. Looks like redstone is actually something that we should probably move over. No, this is actually pretty good. And then we need obsidian. So I'll grab some of that. And then we need to go underground. Believe it or not, I do have an area already set up from our mine. So if I travel to mine, down in this area is direct access to some bedrock, which is going to be very helpful. And so all I'm going to need to do is find a good spot such as this, make sure my magnet is turned off, and then I'm just going to drop a bunch of redstone. I think there is a limit to how much this will do at once, but I'm going to place this right above it. And then I just need to punch. And yes, as you see, there is a limit, so we will know whenever we pick this up. So it does what looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 stacks and 8. So for some odd reason, exactly 520. I don't know why that number is, but that is what it is. Now I need to be kind of careful because it seems like standing on this stuff is causing some really creepy stuff to happen. And so I might want to be careful standing on top of this bedrock. Oh, it's making weird noises and such. Oh man, okay. So let's just get the rest of this and get out of here. Maybe we'll come back and experiment with what's going on there later on. But right now I am working on power. All right. Boop. And there's the rest of it. Now something to note, it turns into cobblestone, and this might be something that we can use maybe here in a moment to automate this in some way. Now, I did mention automating this stuff, so I actually need this flux block right here, and apparently we can use a flux block instead of obsidian, or instead of bedrock. And so with some obsidian, let's go ahead and try this again with some redstone. And if we know we can send 8 stacks of redstone out at once, that's pretty cool, right? So let's go ahead and place this down, for example, right here. And I'm going to toss in some of this onto the top of this block exactly. So let's place that down, place down the obsidian, punch it. Okay, and so it does turn into this. But I notice with this, it doesn't turn into cobblestone. Interesting. So that means that this can then be harvested back up and, maybe lead to some possible automation in this case. Now, I was doing some testing and it turns out that an activator module, even though it can attack, it doesn't actually click this. So this might not be possible with modular routers. However, I think I know of a way to do it, but it's going to require some later game things that we, well, would have to go through an entire process for. And that is tunnels. So we should be able to do this, I think, with a player simulator. And so with a player simulator, we could simulate ourselves punching this, which sounds really odd, but it could be possible. That's something I'm going to have to think about because it's going to require a lot of setup to even get to that point within the integrated dynamics mod. So now, enough thinking, let's actually get into how we're going to manage our power for now. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is actually upgrading into a max tier ender cell. Now the ender cell has a maximum input and output of it of 2 million, which is perfect because that's what we're going to be currently producing. And we can also use all of our ender gates still. So that's going to be pretty nice. Now it does come with a caveat, and that, like I said, is its maximum input, but it can store a ton of power. So let's take a look at how we can actually set this up and also incorporate Flux networks with this thing. First of all, let's set up a network with Flux networks. So for this, we are going to use some plugs. Plugs are how you send power into a network, and then Flux points are how you pull power from a network. What we're going to be doing is actually setting up two networks. We're going to have an input network and an output network. So our first network here is going to be what we're going to send power. Anything that generates power is going to be connected to this network. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and we will create a new network over here. And I'm going to give this a decent name. We're going to need to call it something related to inputting power, as in what goes into the battery. So like battery power. Battery power seems good. And then in my case, I'm going to leave this to public. And then I typically want this to be like red, right? Because we're going to be generating some power. And once we create this, we now have a channel or a network set up, and we can click this, and that is now activated. So we now have that set up. On all of these, we also want to make sure that the limit is bypassed, because these are going to be producing quite a bit. And we don't want anything to be limited as in regards to this network. Now, something cool we can do is actually make a network configurator, and this is going to be our best friend. So now that I have this configured, I can go ahead and control and then right click and copy this. And then I can go ahead and paste that onto every single one of these. How cool is that? So bam, just like this. And we now have our main network. But we're not done just yet, because we need the place that we're going to store this power, right? And that is where we're going to send a point, and this is going to be how we send the power in. I think for right now, this would be a pretty decent place to put this. So we're going to put an ender cell from the Powah mod right here. Now by default, this is still on the main channel, and we'll still have all of our power and configuration that we had set up on the first channel. But what we can also do is we can now put these energy cells that are nitro. These are going to allow us to store a lot more power. So when we put these in, notice we can now store 4.4 billion FE per tick at a rate now of 2 million FE per tick on its max. So with that knowledge, let's go ahead and get our point, right? So point, and this point is going to be on the same channel, but this is going to be sending power from this into the cell. So we can go ahead and select our power here. And then we definitely want to make sure the bypass limit is checked here. So we're getting our maximum transfer rate of that 2 million. And so this should be trucking along now, generating 2 million. Now to be able to utilize that 2 million, this is where we're going to need, like I said, a separate channel or separate network. This is going to receive power, pull power from the buffer block now. And this is going to be called the main power, right? And we'll set this to public, and this one, I'm going to set it to green. So this is now the main power, and we also want the limit to be bypassed here. And now all we have to do anytime we want to give something power is we'll simply use a flux point. For example, if I wanted to power my main refined storage system here, I would just simply select main power, and now our power will be provided from the source right up top here, leaving this as the buffer block in between. Cool thing is, whenever we switch to a better version of this storage later on that has an infinite throughput and output, or nearly infinite throughput and output, we will be able to easily just pick up our own old nodes off of this particular setup and move it onto that one. So it's going to be very easy to transfer our network over. But for right now, this is now sealed up, and we can now start to manage and see our network a bit clearer. So inside of this, we have these network statistics, and we're able to see more clearly what things are using power, where power is going, and all kinds of other information that we just can't see with the Powah mod. However, the Powah mod is still very nice, because instead of using these flux plugs everywhere, I can still keep those nice flat things and still use ender cells, or use the ender gates, right? So I can still use those because we are still using this ender cell. Now, hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but that is how you're going to basically set up any sort of storage with Flux networks. And I think it's a very good thing to know how to do. And it's not too bad. Honestly, these can get way more complicated than that. You can have multi-networks, and then you can have networks within this ender cell. I can completely change this up, and I can have all 12 of these channels sending power and receiving power from different locations. So yeah, well, we're not going to get into that. So now I think with this, we now got the Powah. That's right. The whole Powah setup, this is about as good as it gets. And so guys, if you enjoyed today's episode and you learned something new, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give that beautiful, beautiful thumbs up button a good old smack. Also, don't forget to click that notification bell so you don't miss another episode just like this one. And well, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And of course, that amazing thanks is going to go to Nismo Crater. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. So be sure to check that out, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect, and join the amazing crew today over on there of over 30,000 members and growing. We have an amazing Discord. I would love for you to join. And well, guys, without further ado, as always, thanks for watching. Bye.